Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.
Well, we were trying to do SyncTank on Tuesdays, like Taco Tuesdays happened, and then it was Wednesday, but Let's Not Work Too Hard Wednesdays were happening. And then it was, Don't Think Too Hard Thursday. So now we've got Bizarro SyncTank, where Will is filling in the gap that is Thomas Paranoid American. He'll be doing an episode with me tomorrow. But so this is going to be more of a Will Morgan meta egg transmission kind of a thing. So I'm glad you're here. How you doing, Willie Will?
I'm doing good. How you doing, David?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. Yeah, I've been on a Twin Peaks kick, but Will's not like super versed in Twin Peaks. Are you hip to Twin Peaks, Andreas?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I love Twin Peaks for sure.
Well, of course, Will here is. I don't know. Will, have you seen season 3?
Laura Palmer and Will Morgan are basically the same character. It's like Laura Palmer is like the Freemason disappeared Laura Palmer version of Will Morgan. If you think about it, it's like the same story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Then there's the movie, right? There's how many seasons?
Fire Walk with Me. There's 3 seasons total. There's 2 seasons at the beginning in the early 90s, and then there's the 3rd season came out in 2017, and then there's the movie that came out after season 2. David Lynch didn't have that much to do with season 2 except for the beginning and the end, and that's what I wanted to. So like I'm on a trip right now.
So
like I don't know, it's kind of complicated.
Right? There's basically the first season where he's playing all kinds of games with people. Then there's the second season where they start losing ratings and try to take over, right? And so the initial series is only 2 seasons. Is that right?
I think they caused them to lose the ratings. Like that's the crazy thing. Like the studio got involved. So as far as like my trip right now, it's a little hard to explain, but basically, like if you look at so first of all, he did The Return, right? The Return, like he was a potential candidate for directing Return of the Jedi, right? So like for real. So like Twin Peaks is largely about.
I mean, Dune's got to be the same time frame, right?
Right. So that's the thing, is that Dune shares the same issue that he had with the studio with Twin Peaks, where the production company in that case needed to have this closure that he didn't want to have. Because even you'd think with Dune, they would have just let him have it, because with Dune, Frank Herbert never gave us closure. It wasn't until Frank Herbert's kids came along and gave us a real closure deal. Like wasn't like that. So it would actually be the perfect place for feasibly for Lynch to do his thing that he was trying to do with Twin Peaks, which is basically create this insane soap opera, which is really like the answer to soap opera and informative murder porn. So like he wanted to do this thing where he didn't have that conclusion deal, where you just leave it open and just keep it going like that, and the studio couldn't handle it. So like what I want to put out there is that like Lynch, it was thought for a while that he was like a total Trump supporter, because people took one quote from him where he was basically saying that Trump stands to be a great president or one of the greatest presidents. So Lynch put out a like an open letter to Trump, like after people jumped on that and were like, whoa, Lynch is a Trump supporter, and he was like, no, don't get me wrong. And he explained that really, like, he saw the potential that Trump had and was like, you could do something incredible here with this potential. So yeah, there it is. We could read it. But one of the greatest presidents. Yeah.
Do you want me to read this clarification
Yeah,
or his original?
read it. It's
Okay.
it's
Dear
funny.
Mr. President, this is from 2018, by the way.
Yeah.
This is David Lynch writing. I saw that you retweeted the Breitbart article with the headline, Director David Lynch, Trump, quote, could go down as one of the greatest presidents in history. I wish you and I could sit down and have a talk. This quote, which has traveled around, was taken a bit out of context and would need some explaining. Unfortunately, if you continue as you've been, you will not have a chance to go down in history as a great president. This would be very sad, it seems, for you and the country. You are causing suffering and division. It's not too late to turn the ship around, point our ship towards a bright future for us all. You can unite the country. Your soul will sing. Under great loving leadership, no one loses. Everyone wins. It's something I hope you think about and take to heart. All you need to do is treat all people as you would like to be treated. Sincerely, David Lynch.
So check it out. Like, just consider this. Like, the first season of Twin Peaks, he had his control. He did his second season. They took the show from him, basically. Like, I'm like, I can relate everything that happened and is happening with Donald Trump to what happened with Twin Peaks in really direct ways, like uncanny. Like, if you've seen that 5.5 hour or 4.5 hour thing, thing that guy Twin Perfect, if you go on YouTube and look at Twin Perfect, are you hip to that? Like, this guy did this like incredible expose where he just basically breaks down Twin Peaks, and it's impossible to argue with most of this. Like, I'd say 95% of this guy's thesis, where he goes with this, is like impossible to refute. So basically, he's showing you how David Lynch, like, I think a lot of people like would relate to Lynch like they would a lot of other directors, where things are like hidden. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's so far away. But like Lynch, like, it's like right in your face. It's why David Lynch like has that earpiece and like in this show when he's like, I'm trying to tell you, if you would just listen. Like, he's like literally like he's spelling it out as directly as he can. So Twin Peaks is a circuit. So where you have the one goes positive and then it goes negative and then there's the equilibrium. And this guy makes the argument for that. Like what the way that Twin Peaks is so meta, like it speaks to like it's not just a show, like it's speaking to like television itself and like film itself and like the nature of the whole thing. Like, I wouldn't give this guy's whole argument justice, but if you haven't seen this, I highly recommend it. But I'm just basically tripping out. I'm like, I feel like the first season of Twin Peaks is like has this there's this incredible potential that existed for what could have been this ongoing show that just was like taken over by the studio, in the same way that like Trump's presidency had this potential as Lynch describes it, but his administration in his first term, basically, like John Bolton and like all of these people like Pompeo and stuff, it was like it's very strikingly similar. Like, I think Lynch like identified with Trump in a certain way. Like, he saw a potential that existed, then he saw what he was coming up against. And so like it's you know, neither one of them, I don't know. They're not, these aren't perfect people.
I don't know. I see them both as culture jammers. I got into an argument with the guy from Negative Land about this, because I kind of see what Trump did in a lot of ways, kind of like what Negative Land did with the U2 bombing single that they put out, that they basically got sued for. But in my opinion, Trump's whole strategy is sort of like culture jamming.
Sure.
You know? And in a way that is kind of like reflective of how Lynch shows things in a very brutal kind of like exposed way. I won't say brutal, I'll say exposed.
Right, but Trump is a reality TV star. Like
For
Lynch
real.
was trying to make a soap opera that was the answer to soap operas. He did something completely different, and his explanation repeatedly is that he was trying to bring balance to something that he felt was imbalanced. So Lynch was looking at television. He's like, something's very imbalanced here, and he's like, he wanted to make the answer to that. And so, like, that's what Twin Peaks is, according to
Who
Lynch.
killed
And
Stormy
so, and
Daniels?
so he was going to
Who
do
killed
Return of the
Stormy
Jedi. What
Daniels?
is Return of the Jedi about? But you were supposed to bring balance to the Force. I know that's the prequels, but it's still applicable because it says in Hebrew on Darth Vader's plate. We've
His
discussed this.
merits.
By his merits, he'll be judged. And so, like, apply that whole thing to Donald Trump, and then look at also like what Twin Peaks: The Return is, because Twin Peaks: The Return is like it's already done. They revealed Laura Palmer's killer, right? Like, there's nothing he can do about it.
It's there too, because I went to like the costume thing that was touring around like a bunch of art museums. And you can get right up in there, and there's no doubt it's not inspired by Hebrew. It's Hebrew. It's because it's not. At first, you might think it's like the Huttonese or whatever, the Star Wars language that they use. They write stuff down, but it's not.
Hebrew. You can read it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's a good photo right there. It's
They
so
invented the Star Wars basic language way later and had to replace the Hebrew letters way later. But there's no question that the original 1977 Star Wars featured space Jewish. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, they were writing.
But George Lucas is not Jewish. George Lucas is like
he's a Theosophist.
Catholic.
Well, no, he's a Theosophic.
He's married into his what was it? His family that he married into. They're super Christian. Yeah, Myers, I believe.
Well, George Lucas's wife, Marcia Lucas, is she's I don't know if she's a Christian. Is she? Maybe his first. I think his first wife.
His first wife, I might be thinking of.
Okay,
yeah, we went over this recently. This came up recently.
Melody. This is his current wife, Melody Hobson. Right. And I don't know if she's like, was she raised Christian? I guess she went from the St. Ignatius College Prep School to the Princeton University. So
I have no idea about her. I'm talking about his previous wife, I guess.
She's really interesting lady, and it's interesting that he was so interested in the Mayan calendar, so concerned allegedly with the end of the world to sell Star Wars. Right? I think that he's more interested. He's interested in theosophic things. You can see that from his idealized version of himself, which is young Indiana Jones. Right? Everything he wished he did is in young Indiana Jones. So, for instance, I think George Lucas had a very sick mother a lot of the time. So he was trying to imagine how great it would be to have a participatory figure in his life, which is this, educator, his private tutor, but his mother who dies very young in the show, Young Indiana Jones show, that's related to George Lucas having kind of a poor relationship with his alcoholic mother. Right. But I don't think he was super, Catholic or anything like that. I think his family.
No, but I mean, we're kind of drawing the conclusion that he's not Jewish.
He's not Jewish. He's not Jewish. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have an interest in Judeo-Kabbalistic things. I mean, his theosophic background, I think, is what brings him to
he is theosophical, even the way that Star Wars is made, whether he's technically a theosophist or not. It's theosophical. He's taking from all these different places and communicating a larger thing, out of it. Like, all the things that Star Wars pulls from and references and ties together, it's like, it's extreme. People are like, Star Wars is actually based on this Western. No, Star Wars is based on Valerian. It's the French comic book. Star Wars is based on Dune. Like, it just keeps going. Like, you can see all these things, and it's actually, they're all true. Right. Yeah. But I guess what I'm pointing out is that if you look at what The Return is it's like, it's all like, he's like, they did what they did. I can't change that. Now from here, where do we go to bring the balance? Like, because he's like, he can't get back what the studio took from him.
So did you guys ever see the Rabbit soap opera by Lynch?
Yeah, of course. Rabbits, yeah.
Rabbits, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sitcom from hell, I believe, was in his own words, how he put it. Yeah.
With how you're describing, like, because literally the rabbits are just like pointed in certain directions, doing certain things. Every time one enters, it's almost like the Cosby Show, like everybody cheers. but nothing really actually happens. It's like it's some messed up Watership Down is what it is, man. But
well, what's on top of your television set? What did they call it back in the day?
Rabbit ears.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. But it's very Puka-esque, you know. There's like this whole idea. I mean, it seriously is like nothing actually happens, but it's kind of making a satire about like the modern sitcom. And it kind of feels like that's what you're saying Twin Peaks is in a lot of ways. Like it's just kind of a satire on soap operas and what you call like murder porn.
It's like he's trying to bring balance to something that he sees deeply imbalanced in television. And that's, I think, the point. And it goes beyond soap operas, but when people said, is it like a soap opera? And he's like, it is a soap opera, you know, like that's, so you got to take it from there, you know. But I think that the point that guy makes in that thing that I was pointing out from the Twin Perfect thing, we should have him on, by the way, if he would agree to it. That would be awesome. But like, you know, he's trying to make a point that he's like, Lynch tells you everything. Like you don't, it's not like you have to go like to these crazy obscure places. Like I don't have to pull out the Zohar to explain Twin Peaks because it's all there and it's all like right in your face. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, remember Stanley Kubrick, he made everybody watch Eraserhead who was involved with The Shining. And that doesn't just go for actors. I was like, everybody involved. He's like, this is what I'm going for. Why was that? Because Eraserhead is like a dream, like psychoanalytic communication around raising a child. Of, you know, the woman gets pregnant and you have to deal with the baby and how freaking weird that is. So it's like, and so The Shining's really similar because The Shining is like a in part, it's a lot of things, but it's of those things, it's like a psychoanalytic view of family dynamics and all the layers of neuroses and dysfunction, you know, like, so it's this kind of like exaggerated dream communication around our own issues, you know.
So going back to Star Wars, did you hear that what the basic budget is for the new movie, the Grogu? And
No.
it's like maybe 100 mil, one plus, but it's like the lowest amount ever spent on a Star Wars movie.
Okay.
So there's something here going on where it's like Star Wars has become television, you know?
Right. Very applicable, Will. That's crazy. Yeah,
Thanks, David.
I was just tripping out on like that you have the 9 films, right? And the way he went back and did the return, you know, so to speak. And then you have the 2 extra that are like a Star Wars story. I was just talking about this, and each one of them implies one. That you have you know, Solo, which is 1 singular Solo, and you have Rogue One. And so it's 9 and 11 total, but it's 911 is Star Wars. So if they make another movie, that's too bad because it feels like right now I'm like, oh, that's tight. But look at how much television. Look at since Disney got it, how many freaking Star Wars shows. Like if you try to look up like watch Star Wars in order, you're like, okay, I can handle the films. I know that after I watch the prequels, you know what I mean? I watch Solo or whatever, and then I can watch Rogue One, and then I can watch like, but once you get into the shows, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to map all this out to know the proper order? And they even have crossover, like, you know, before you get through this trilogy, you got to throw in there whatever. I don't know what they all are, but you're probably following them.
Well, yeah, you're talking about the animated too, because the animated ran for like seasons upon seasons, and that was like the entire span of the Clone Wars. Like there's so many different like ins and outs, but people have done that. Like there's some like sort of bootleg copies that you can get that will mix all of the different stuff together into like one cohesive story, like as it's going in the animated and the other, like the newer TV stuff. It's
Judy Jedi. So like you remember the thing with David Bowie with Judy, and then he says in season 3 he goes, Judy is actually like, I forget how he pronounces it, Zhao Day, and then you look that up and it means closure in Japanese. And then there's like, if you watch the behind the scenes of season 3, he's pronouncing something for that Japanese lady that they find in the woods who doesn't have the eyes. she has no eyes or whatever, and he's pronouncing her name, and he pronounces it like the exact how he pronounces Jude. So there's no question of like, this is the Japanese word that means closure or whatever. So they're looking for closure is the point. All through Twin Peaks, we're trying to find closure. But at the same time, he's like, once you have that, then, you saw that as the death of the show. So he was like, can we have a show that never has closure? Can we be okay with that? Like, he's into transcendental meditation. You know what I mean? Like, what is this demand that people have for closure when it comes to...
I was just thinking about David Bowie because of the Roman salute, right? Because at one point he was in so much trouble, right? Because he was going around doing this thing, and I feel like
the thin white duke.
It almost canceled him. Like, it took him until 9 Inch Nails to even get back into... I mean, he wasn't going to be remembered.
I'm afraid of Americans.
Basically canceled him over this.
They made him change the lyric, like they had like the lyrics for how the radio version of that. I think even the version that's in Showgirls for "I'm Afraid of Americans" actually says "I'm afraid of the animals." Like, why? Like, it's okay. Like, why is it not okay to say "I'm afraid of Americans" like that? Would it have been controversial for him to say "I'm afraid of Americans" if it wasn't for the thin white duke thing that you're referencing, Andreas?
I don't think so. I think that's what, and it was because of was it Billy Graham? I think Billy Graham was like, you know what? He was the first one to say, like, you can play somewhere else. You're not going to get to play in my clubs ever again, and in my venues, and that began this major cancellation of anything to do with him. And he had said, that he thought fascists were glam rockers, and that Adolf Hitler was one of the first rock stars or something like that. Well, and that was really a dangerous game for him to play. He was much more that's what Bowie said. I'm just saying.
No, I'm kind of thinking Bowie might be onto something there.
Well, I mean, his outlet, the Hugo Boss clothing. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're saying. Man.
I mean, that was Marilyn Manson's argument about Christianity, was that Jesus was like the first rock star, where you're like the treatment of fame. Like, people could be famous for being a leader. He was famous for literally like, going up on a mountain, talking a bunch of shit,
But people like Peter Biebergall and stuff like that have like shown how the whole rock and roll of the 60s basically came out of this need to have some sort of like, what do you call it when the member of a tribe's supposed to leave, like this coming of age test, that all kids have. Our culture doesn't have that. I mean, like the Jewish culture has like the bar mitzvah, but actual like Gentiles don't have like this coming of age.
We did in the 90s. Remember, MTV had Sweet 16. For a minute.
I have a question though.
Our coming of age.
Who's the Jedi that Return of the Jedi is referring to? You remember, first it's called Revenge of the Jedi, then he says it's not in a Jedi's vocabulary, so you have Revenge of the Sith later. But who's the Jedi? We would assume that it's Luke, right? Or is it the redemption of Darth Vader? That the return is his return,
because he's an actual Jedi,
because he's the prodigal son, right?
Luke's not necessarily an actual Jedi. Exactly. It's
right.
The idea of
the parable is that the father loves the son who returns more than the one who never left. So it's as though with Twin Peaks, it's like the fact that the studio did what they did is what gives the return.
That's why it's not called Return of the Jedi Master, because Anakin never made Master.
Ooh. Right. He was never 33rd degree Anakin. He was 32nd, Oh. He had to be approved by the council, But yeah.
It's unheard of.
Yeah. I think
somebody asked what's on my hat. It says Original Gangster, and it's Jabba the Hutt, and it's a total coincidence that I'm going off about.
That's pretty base.
Oh, really? I've done so much research on the importance of Star Wars. Like, I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show before, but like it sustained multiple industries, not just film. Like the toys made more money. The toys made more money than the movies. But also it brought back Marvel Comics from almost extinction, because they had they were on the decline, and then they licensed Star Wars. I think that like Stan Lee didn't even want to. And I think that in the end, there was like 7 different reprints of Star Wars. So all of those sold out, which created enough revenue for Marvel to like restructure.
And it recreated history. I think a big part of Star Wars is you have kids trying to wrestle with the world we lived in the 70s and how we got there. And we go from, you know, The Longest Day and Stalag 17 to Apocalypse Now. Like, how do we go from defeating the Sith to becoming the Sith?
Right.
Which is what America did, right? It was amazing to see.
Exactly.
And how do you explain that? And Star Wars was the best meta mythology of our history that people could handle a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But it's really
right. It's also how the oppressed become the oppressors, and the nature of that cycle, and the way that we treat things is that there's the good guys and there's the bad guys, and we keep reacting against that as though this wasn't like a paradox, as though this wasn't some perpetual cycle that we're locked into, where you have a republic that becomes an empire, and once the empire, you know, as it becomes tyrannical, then you have a rebel alliance that attacks that empire, and when they defeat the empire, then they form a republic, and that republic turns into an empire, which gets defeated by a rebel alliance, which in turn creates a republic, which becomes an empire, and on and on and on it goes through time.
Keep going.
Go back to the chest plate, the diagram of the Jewish chest plate.
Sure.
That thing. What does this say here?
The golden garments of the Cohen, so the Aaronic priesthood, right? And so you have the Mormons call this the same name, right? The Urim and Thummim. But you have the 2 onyx stones. Each stone has graved 6 names of tribe of Israel. And you have the diamond, you have the amethyst, you have the carbuncle, the sardius, beryl, onyx, jasper. These are very specific precious stones. The names come up again when you read Revelation. Yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
Come up in the foundations of New Jerusalem.
Right, yeah, in the spaceship Earth, yeah.
Well, it's used for prophecy too. And Star Wars is loaded with prophecy. And so is Twin Peaks, for that matter.
The Death Star is New Jerusalem.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. Well, the main difference
when it shows up, it destroys the whole planet, right? That's like the whole point of like Judgment Day. New Jerusalem shows up, and anybody who's against God, they're down. And so, I mean, in a way, the Empire becomes like God. I mean, of course, Vader always has taken on this like demiurge father figure, right?
The thing about
but deeper than that is the dark. Right. Well, there's the dark side, and so that's what happens to Cooper. Cooper gets cloned, okay, and he attacks. He goes on the attack in the Return. So Cooper, there's like 4 Coopers. Like, I don't even know what's going on with that. Like, it gets so crazy. But like, you know, the point is the dark side. It's like what you were saying on the show earlier today, Will, regarding Leviathan. And like, I was like trying to chime in there that I'm like, dude, are we talking about like time? Because your whole thing where you're like, that's in Job, where it's saying that only God can defeat the Leviathan. Look how great giant Leviathan is. Like,
can you take your fish hook and pierce the nose of Leviathan?
Right.
Because that whole chapter before it, God's basically saying stuff like, can you do this? Can you bind the power of the Pleiades? But so there's some interesting things that both David Koresh said about the chest plate as being like a communication device with God. So you would ask certain questions, and certain of the stones on the chest plate would light up to answer the question, so to speak.
Yeah, that's why it's connected. People take it connected to tarot. So they say that the tarot tableau is actually derived from the same place, even though these are supposed to correspond to the 12 tribes.
Yeah.
Of each gem, you know. So they correspond these with the arcana of the trump cards of a tarot deck. So even though you have 22 and you have 12, it's taken that way. But yeah.
So basically it said that, I mean, and the way that Koresh is using it and the way that Lucas is, they're both implying that it's technology.
Wait, is that Koresh or is that the Koresh in the miniseries? Am I looking at it?
Oh, the Koresh in the miniseries doesn't even mention the Bible, really.
No, well, that image that I was looking at, was that the actual David Koresh there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
was.
that's
God,
really
they
good.
did a good job in that show because that just totally
Taylor?
looks like
Taylor Kish or whatever his name is.
yeah. Then that was a good casting, I would say.
For
I don't
sure.
know if the character is really right, but it looks really good. And I've heard, I haven't really investigated it too much, but I hear that he kind of wanted to play Koresh. But because he started out, his career started out in Saturday Night Live, the one that also took place in Texas. Anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah, his whole thing where so he has like he also was in that Oliver Stone movie called, what was it? Animals or Creatures? Do you know which one I'm talking about, David?
I know a lot of Oliver Stone movies. I don't know Creatures. I know that Jim Morrison did the new Creatures and he did the Horus, but no.
What was it? Creatures? No. It was something brutal like that. It shouldn't be that hard to find out. Just look up Taylor's name.
So many movies that Oliver Stone did.
There really is too many Oliver Stone movies, and not all of them are that great of quality either.
Some of them are really underrated. I was going to say the opposite. I think Seizure's okay, but I love The Hand. I thought The Hand is actually pretty. I mean, I like my.
Is that Michael Caine? Oh,
yeah, have you seen The Hand?
Oh, this says right there. Okay, yeah.
The Hand's a really good one. I would recommend. I mean, and also World Trade Center, I never liked until I didn't want to like it to be fair. But then I realized how awesome it was because it had like a Zoolander poster in it, and I only realized that because of David's Sync film.
It doesn't just have a Zoolander, but it's the only time that you see any semblance of one of the planes that hits the two towers is when the shadow of the plane goes over the Zoolander poster, and Zoolander's all about hypnosis and MK Ultra. So yeah. Anyway.
Savages. That's the name of it.
That's the one you're looking for. Okay. If I know that one. I don't think I know that.
Taylor plays one person, then the guy who plays in Kick-Ass plays the other person, and then they're both like in bed with Blake Lively, and they run like that guy.
And John Travolta's in this one, right?
Right, or Angel Michael, I guess you could call him.
Yeah, Prince Michael Jackson. This is pretty. I haven't seen this movie since it came out, so I don't remember it too well. But you think this movie's got some deeper message here? I mean, like obviously these are all victims of Weinstein, so there's something there, right?
Well, it has to do with the relationship between. There's always a confusion of the identity of who David is or who David says he is, depending on carnal and spiritual. And the dichotomy of the three individuals who are in the love triangle, that being Taylor Kish, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Blake Lively, and then the Quicksilver dude. Please forgive me, I don't have their names on hand right now. But those three, she makes a point of saying that one of them was all about like the body and carnal, and the other one was all spiritual and stuff. But if you also look, and what's his name? Come on, what's that guy's name?
Benicio del Toro?
No.
Oh.
Savages it stars Taylor Kish, Blake Lively, and Aaron Taylor Johnson. And I'll show you something really cool about Aaron Taylor Johnson. Because, so Taylor Kish is supposed to be the David Koresh character, but he's got this guy who's kind of like a Tyler Durden-esque character in Savages. They're both like the same person, but they reflect two different opposites of like the personality. But if you look at one of his first roles, it's actually in the BBC presentation of the Book of Revelations. And he's like a little kid is sitting there with the John the Revelator while he's like, yeah, there it is, the Apocalypse, which stars Richard Harris as John the Revelator. And while he's telling them the visions of like Revelations, the seals and the Lamb, Taylor Johnson he's like the little kid who's part of the remnant of people who are following the John. It's crazy, man. He's like an early Christian. So he's got the connections just like Taylor's got the connections. In fact, all of the individuals who are involved with Waco, the series, have these weird connections that like kind of give you little secrets on the characters of the real people.
archetype casting that they were trying to spiritualize the movie as they were making it, right? They're like,
they were definitely trying to humanize people, but there's a lot. Like tomorrow I have a 10 o'clock show with a professor of the history of religions to basically sort out what's true and what's false, because we already know that there's stuff false. Like I said, the original sync is that the guy who plays David Koresh also plays John Carter, and that David Koresh is calling himself the God of War, so there's a connection. So we're looking for the secret of how are aliens and Mars, the God of War, and technology involved with this understanding of David Koresh. And that's the big Punch and Judy. It took me like 5 years to even get it took me about 5 years to get survivors or to get records of survivors going, oh yeah, Merkaba are spaceships.
what did you just say about Judy?
Punch and Judy?
Punch and Judy?
Oh, we're back to Judy.
I know. I was like, did you do that on purpose? I think we need to need to normalize just saying Judy as conclusion or yeah.
Yeah, there's aliens
Punch
involved.
and Judy goes back to 1662.
Oh my god.
I never realized Punch and Judy was that old. That's crazy. What? Here's a painting of Punch and Judy going on from 1829, or would already have been centuries old.
Wasn't that in the Green Knight where something very similar to this, right? Where they reenact what had happened, where he had cut off the head of the Green Knight or whatever, and then he gets his head cut off.
Well, I mean, that whole idea of a play is used through a whole bunch of different stuff. The Green Knight was really good, by the way. The Green Knight has so many, like the story itself has so many like archetypal like peaks and valleys in it. And the actual movie, they did a good job.
They changed certain things, and the things that they changed. So like I have this on Twitter, I think too, but I have it on the website. That the Green Knight syncs with the Doors. There's like the live albums. There's this crazy thing that happens. But if they hadn't made the changes that they made in the movie that are different from the book, it wouldn't work like it does. Because they made it so it's his mom who's directing him. Like you saw it, so you know what I'm talking about. Remember, his mom is like this witchy lady, and she's doing this whole thing. That's not in the original book like that. But the original book, like I got a copy of it because I was like, oh, I want to read this, and like I was like, I saw J.R.R. Tolkien had done like a translation of it, but I can't find a copy that's like, I can't read Old English like that. It's insane. Like there's no copy that's like actually like something I'm able to process with words.
Where's this? Was the Persephone the whole mythological story who is like stolen away to heaven, and she kind of like represents spring? And
I think it's a weird. I don't know. I was taught like a California liberal feminist take on this one, so maybe I'm wrong here. But I think what's really with Persephone, it's like Hades isn't a bad guy, really. Like Zeus goes around raping people all the time. Hades is his brother. And what it is that Zeus got a taste for death from Saturn.
Women.
So Jupiter is Zeus, right? Zeus, whatever. Jupiter. You got Kronos, who's Saturn. Kronos eats his children to keep himself energized. And all of a sudden, out of this, cuts out his son Jupiter. But in the process, he forces his son to taste himself. Like his son takes a bite of Saturn, and he gives his son, his son learns from the father, a taste for flesh, a taste for life, a taste for death, which is why humans are important. Because now Zeus needs to make more kids, more humans, more life that he can eat. And the river of Styx into the land of the dead, the Tartarus, that's where Hades, his brother, has to be the mouth. The river's the mouth. It's the mouth and the throat of the gods. And they're eating life, right? So Hades is supposed to be guarding the river of Styx, so that Jupiter, his brother, can continue to drink and suckle upon the life force of man, okay? So he's not such a bad guy. He's just doing what his brother tells him to do, but he doesn't go around raping and murdering. And Hades ends up falling in love with Persephone, and he's really a nice husband, as far as I can tell. It's her family. It's Persephone's family that don't like Hades. So she makes a deal essentially. It's kind of like Mario and Koopa. Like she's running away and Mario keeps trying to rescue her, but she keeps going back to Koopa. Like Persephone keeps going back to Hades. She likes Hades, and the deal is that Hades says, "All right, like I'll let you go back and see your family, so they know that you're okay. Every other season, you're going to go back for spring, and then they'll have you, but then you come back to me." And he keeps his word. Have we had an endless winter? So really, Hades gets a bad rap.
You know what's messed up though is that when we talk about mythology like this, and then we like say we're to have a discussion around like something biblical, like I was just talking about the prodigal son or whatever, like worlds apart, right? Because one, you can say this is the story, but with the Greek mythology and the Roman mythology, there's so many different versions.
Yeah,
and if you want to, you can take bits from this version and bits from that version and put it all together. And it's malleable.
I would say the Green Knight is a version of the Persephone myth.
Really?
Like it carries a lot of the symbolic weight.
Oh, that's interesting.
Elaborate.
Yeah, elaborate.
Elaborate.
Yeah.
So it has to do with like sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
death.
Like the generation of death. I mean, they just showed the wheel,
the cycles
right there.
of life. Yeah.
Right, exactly, which is used a lot of times. It's almost the exact same like
to everything
imagery for Persephone. Persephone's usually like all throughout time, but there's the green man aspect of growing back. And what he does is he kind of is having an affair with the Green Knight's wife in a way. So there's this whole like sexual morality that exists.
I don't know, man. He's like the woman is the same woman. And I think that there was a basis for that in the book. You caught that, right? That when he goes to the castle, it's the same actress that's playing the woman at the castle as was his girlfriend who he left in the first place. So what is even happening? It's kind of crazy. But yeah, no, I can kind of see what you're getting at. It's just, I remember Crowley's explanation of that story was really simple, where it's just like things might seem, with the Persephone story, that things might seem sweet, but be aware that by partaking of them, that you could be setting something into motion. So it's almost like, hey, speaking to like in the ancient world, like, hey, if you have sex, you're like, oh, that felt really good, but you might end up with a baby. Because you have the season, the winter didn't exist before that somehow, but in the
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the overarching theme overall, like this whole idea of generation and then the seasons. But that's like the whole idea.
3 seasons: the flood, growing, and dry season. Right before this, it's the invention of the winter season.
A friend of mine just sent me a message with without Persephone coming back up, there would be no spring, summer. So without her, it's winter all year long.
Sort of, yeah. So the idea is, I mean, at least the stories that the shift is that the Egyptians had flood season from the flooding of the Nile, which then allowed for growing season, and then they would have all of these things in the marshlands, and then that led to dry season. So you had flood, growing, and dry season, but all of a sudden you have some sort of winter that emerges, and we have to account for the changes in weather. People would often associate with volcanoes. Volcanoes have made years without summer. Iceland didn't used to be Icelandic. It used to be covered in all sorts of foliage and everything else. So the idea that the gods are upset and the volcano has something to do with that, for sure.
Right.
But there's also a benefit, yeah.
Can I just point out how I'm just going to jump in here, but isn't it freaking crazy the way that all these things that we talk about like in the ancient world are completely happening today? Like this is the Kubrick thing, but like it's the return, right? Every time when people talk about the way that they talk about global warming or climate change, whatever you happen to think about that, there's so many implications that have to do with appeasing the gods. Where it's like, don't do this, the gods will get angry. If we keep doing this, the gods will get angry. But it's like the climate gods are going to punish us. Even if you can justify it, even if you can rationalize it, they're able to do that in the ancient world too, right? Like you're like, because the proof is in whatever you see. So if you see something happen, in other words, when people see the fires happening, like in LA and Palisades or whatever reason, they're like, freaking, there it is, the proof of the global warming. Never mind all these other issues having to do with there was no freaking water in the, all of that. But like, just still, like, I just want to say, like, that's the treatment of it. It's like this is what you get. So there's a lot of examples. Like I imagine that happened in the ancient world too. Like that there was still like people would do something and then they would blame like the higher powers, or look at what they're doing to us, like I'm sure.
Or there's some sort of morality involved with our behaviors that cause the disasters themselves. I mean, that's like explicit with global warming and everything, is like, you're not doing your part. Like you're not offering up.
It flips the other way too, that the virtue signal or whatever you want to call it, you don't need to call it that, but whatever it is that you're paying homage and you're saying, look, I'm doing the thing. Aren't you going to be merciful upon me?
Moral grandstanding.
Yeah, totally.
Shit, there was a whole bunch of things. There's like 5 things that come up when you guys are talking that I'm like, oh, that's whoa. And then afterwards I'm like, damn it, what was that? What were we talking about?
The Urim and Thummim, that those were in the Ark of the Covenant?
They're in the Ark of the Covenant. They're also they're in the Ark of the Covenant.
They're held within there. I forgot. Yeah.
Right. And there's that sort of the 2 Sphinx statues, like the 2 angel seraphim that kind of look like, it reminds me of the Never-Ending Story. Those 2 big
boots. Which I was just listening to on tape.
Well, the whole Never-Ending Story is tightly wound to the whole idea of like the prophecies. Like I won't say much, but I will say that David Koresh's seals go in a loop. But throughout the prophecies, you also have basically the War of the Snakes. The War of the Snakes begins in Adam and Eve. Eve takes the fruit, comes down and passes the blame off. He basically says, from now on, the snakes and the females are always going to be at war. The snakes come up again and again, because they come up like during Moses, his snakes eat the Pharisees' snakes.
Yeah.
And there's also him holding up the brazen snake to receive the curse, which is replayed again with Christ. Christ is a snake.
Yes.
He's one of the snakes, but there's 2 snakes. There's the Leviathan and the cockatrice. And Christ is like the cockatrice that's supposed to eat the Leviathan.
Samael's a snake. Leviathan is more of like a sea creature of sorts.
Leviathan is tightly worn to the Ouroboros. Look up Leviathan and you're going to find the Ouroboros.
Right, but not in the Bible.
Well, I mean,
I get your point.
I explain to you, out of order, yes. Out of order, the cockatrice and the Leviathan.
So why the Messiah and Nachash are so tied. The serpent in Hebrew is the same gematria as Messiah in Hebrew. So
Messiah is a snake,
which are also Fibonacci numbers. Is 358.
Remember the Hunger Games, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? Was that a sync that you guys were meaning to bring up already? Because that was the first thought I had when you were speaking.
I've never seen the Hunger Games.
None of them? You never seen
I saw like one, but I wasn't even paying attention. It was one of the later ones. Yeah.
I thought I was watching the Hunger Games, but it turned out I was just watching Casino Royale or Tokyo Battle Royale. But I like all the Freemason symbols in this one. There's a lot of fun. They did a lot of fun stuff. And
I thought I had mono once for an entire year, but it turned out I was just watching Hunger Games. No, I don't know. It sounds
District 9, District 12.
No, but it's applicable. Wasn't there a thing where a producer of the Hunger Games?
The Snow White girls in this Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Oh no!
I feel like, look at her outfit too.
That's crazy though, because the birds help her clean the house. No, to prepare for she did that not even knowing who the dwarfs were. That's who she is. That's who.
But who else was in this movie? Who's in this movie? Guess what? Who's the most famous dwarf in the world? And he's the one who complained about the Snow White movie because he's not going to be in the movie, right? So.
Right. He was discriminated against for not being.
He's actually.
I was born for this role.
I was.
He was literally. Peter Dinklage.
You wanted them to clone him for all the different dwarves.
I would have been into that for some reason. That would have been fine.
Like Jango Fett.
Or like in the Willy Wonka with the clone.
Oh yes, right.
But wasn't it? It was the producer's son who shot up the college. It was the producer of Hunger Games. His son murdered a ton of people. And it wasn't long after the Hunger Games came out either.
Is that true?
I don't know that story. Hunger Games producer, son, shooter.
Yeah,
college.
it's true. I'll stand by it. It's a fact.
Identified
here
as
we go.
son of movie director.
Wait. Really? I didn't know that the Elliot
Oh,
Rodger
is the
was connected
director?
to
I said
Hunger.
producer. Yeah, sorry.
Elliot Rodger was connected to the Hunger Games?
Yeah.
His father, Peter Rodger, was assistant director for the Hunger Games? Why did I know that? I didn't know that part. That's pretty crazy.
You're right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I
See,
knew he
I
was
would-
like connected with IMF and stuff, but the Hunger Games, that's
I know,
pretty
right?
nuts right there.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe there's more to that than I mean, I haven't seen
You
Hunger Games,
think?
so I don't even know.
Probably.
Wow.
Is
there
it
might
really
be.
ridiculously applicable there? Like, did he
Oh
do
yeah.
any
So do
kind
you
of
know? Do you
statement?
not know about the Hunger? So the Hunger. Did you ever watch?
No,
the
I know the
Japanese
basic
one?
premise
Yeah.
of the Hunger Games, but I don't know if
That-
whatever there's. You know, I'm like I'm over here talking about Twin Peaks. If you haven't seen Twin Peaks, you still might not even. If you have seen Twin Peaks, you still might not even know what the hell I'm talking about when I talk about Judy. You know.
They officially didn't say that Hunger Games is a ripoff or like an homage to Battle Royale, but it's essentially Battle Royale. So I don't know. I preferred Battle Royale quite a bit as a kid because I mean I'm older, so that's what came out in 2000. I just remember this movie being great. But Battle Royale already did everything we needed for high schoolers being forced to murder each other for the entertainment of the elite. You know, that was already a Japanese movie that didn't need a sequel as far as I could tell. The Hunger Games was pretty famous, so it's interesting that Elliot Rodger of all people would be involved with that. I knew a teacher who was at that school, you know, during that. So it's kind of an interesting thing to me. I mean, it's really strange.
Didn't he like? I can't remember it that well. Didn't he? Wasn't he like in a tower, like taking him out, like Nazi hero style, like?
I'm not sure. I do know that also Woody Harrelson was in the Hunger Games, which is kind of weird too. If you want to connect that to Natural Born Killers from Oliver Stone
and his father, yeah.
So his father is implicated in JFK,
which he basically implicated himself because he was in a shootout with the police and he shouted at the police that he helped kill John F. Kennedy. So whether or not,
dude, what's up with the Trump stuff? Did that shit come out or no?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I don't know what matters about it, how much it's real or anything like that.
We could talk about that if you want. But
do you know much more about
it? I want to know what I don't already know.
Yeah.
There's a few things that are like, you know, at this point, like I think they're all released. So it's like 80,000 pages or something. There was like later in the day they like released like another 30,000 or something. It was just like they're, you know, pouring them out there.
If Thomas E. Beckham's interviews are released, then everything you need to know is released. But
I don't know how much of the information we've figured out is related to JFK yet. What I found interesting was all the other stuff about anti-Semitism, stuff about chemtrails, you know, stuff about drug lords, the CIA working with dictators, working against dictators, working with prostitutes and creating prostitutes for dictators to work for and against dictators. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff in here.
We ran it through Grok, and it turns out that it was the Cubans who did it. It was also the Russians. It was also Oswald acting alone, and it was also the Jews. And it was anybody that you want to connect to it. It's freaking. Have you seen the movie Clue? Like or like Glass Onion? Like it's really like everybody that you that everyone had a reason. Like you can just look around the room. And everybody has a reason to want to take this guy out if you want to find one. Like you can see he pissed off so many people all over the world. So it's just crazy, including all of his own, including the generals, like standing up to the generals and shit. Like it's insane. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe they all did it together. I'm not really sure.
Called Biden a traitor. Like that's what we get out of this.
That's
what we get out of this.
That was old. But it's proven now. But that was said. I remember about John F. Kennedy Jr. So he said, documented as saying that Biden is a traitor. That's
Who did this?
Biden is a traitor. That's what we get out of this.
I mean, there was a lot of information in the JFK assassination documents that we already kind of knew. So that's the thing I find interesting
Well-
is all the stuff we weren't looking for that it's talking about, all the other connections to all the different
There's
groups.
a lot of the files are just like the same files that we had before. They're just like re-released, but like with the batch of other things that weren't. There's a lot of things that we'd had previously released, but they were redacted and now they're unredacted. And so that's interesting to see what was, I mean, that's what you want, right? Is to look at the stuff that wasn't here and now it is. Like, why wasn't it here? You know?
Well, you saw the movie Executive Action. I think we talked about at some point the movie Executive Action. Executive Action 1970. Directed by David Miller, starring Burt Lancaster. Who wrote it again? It's written by Hollywood blacklisted writer Dalton Trumbo.
Right. Oh, right. Thank you. Whoa.
Right. Yeah. So this
people
movie,
don't know the significance of Trumbo. Trumbo was blacklisted and did so many movies, wrote so many movies, accepted 2 Oscars, including Best Picture for a Roman Holiday under aliases, and the first director to actually have the audacity to put his actual name for a screenplay that he did after years of being blacklisted was Stanley Kubrick for Spartacus.
Right.
Trumbo, if you know the story of Trumbo, you can see the argument for how many scripts get passed around and how so many people can contribute to scripts. Like, it's not just one person's name will be attributed. That person might not even be a real person, apparently. So, yeah.
And what's the Woody Allen movie about this? The List, or is that right? The Woody Allen movie, The Blacklisted. No. The Front. There's a movie.
Yeah.
There's a movie where Woody Allen is hired by Zero Mostel to write for all of these blacklisted people in Hollywood. He's like, well, and essentially it's Trumbo that he's having Woody Allen cover for him. But he's got all these people. Zero Mostel was in the producers, but also was in the McCarthy trials as a character kind of witness that made fun of the idea of the McCarthy trials.
It's a witch hunt.
It's a witch hunt, exactly. Have You No Decency, The American Experience. Pretty like funny, like basically completely made a laughing stock out of the McCarthy witch hunt, essentially. So it's kind of a witch pursuit thing.
It's kind of a witch running after thingy.
When especially when you add like Roy Cohen in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's also, I mean, the cover. I noticed I never saw the cover for the book version of Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but it does have a very interesting sort of cover when you look at that, like the sigil magic of that kind of tree and the serpent wrapped around, and the tail, like sort of.
I was for a second I was like seeing like a crown of thorns, but no.
Look up cockatrice real quick. So I think cockatrice. I think all of this is like related to like the feathered serpent idea.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
So the true dragon, the actual dragons that we probably all had to deal with at some point, giant chickens.
They were giant chicken dinosaurs.
Seriously, that's the thing that scares me the most, because it's a star-crazed reptile. Where's that picture? That was the weirdest picture.
This looks like hermetic. This looks like a Quetzalcoatl for Hermes or something. Is that what's happening?
Exactly what it is. There's a lot of connections between Quetzalcoatl and Hermes. Like if you ask an AI bot, they would probably join them together as an archetype.
And Abraxas.
When I hear there's you remember that cartoon of Star Trek where Quetzalcoatl returns?
Right. This is definitely related to Braxis.
The return.
Braxis, and also Yaldabaoth, or however you say that guy's name.
Yaldabaoth.
Oh, right,
I liked how you said it though. That was weird. Do it again.
That was cooler.
Yaldabaoth.
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 You're weird. Don't like it.
Right.
I never really thought about Abraxas' tummy like that. You know, like you ever wonder about whether like Abraxas has an innie or an outie?
This is a Manly P. Hall etching,
or part of that.
Yeah,
part of it, a part of Secret Teachings. Yeah.
I learned something about that artist, but I have it written down somewhere. That artist was involved in some other weird shit.
I have a theory that that one piece that he did of the alchemical formula was the basis for the Dark Crystal, the one where everything has its two sides. You know, it looks like the cosmology of the Dark Crystal where it came from. But
Sexy.
so the idea is that the serpent is the lowest to the earth, and the bird is up in the air, right? So it's like as above, so below, in as one entity, right? It's non-duality in that way, of the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. That's
Well, they're clearly the same. I mean, that's the funny thing. Now we have no doubt from genetics that birds or theropod dinosaurs are reptiles. So avians and reptiles, the distinction is really subtle. I find that kind of interesting. And so here's something that is right in between the two. And pretty much what we experience when we look up dinosaurs now, they say dinosaurs have feathers, that we just missed out. We didn't know that they had feathers, but now we accept that they have feathers, right? So we're looking at, this is the most accurate.
So look up the Branch Davidian flag.
Oh boy.
Branch Davidian flag. Ooh. Oh. It's a sperm.
That's a fire. That's the fiery serpent. That's the feathered serpent.
You have this tattooed on your chest over your heart, right? Will?
That would be dope.
It's on his, it's on his left butt cheek.
There's a couple of different ways to look at this. One way, of course, is like a sperm entering an egg. However, also that's a Merkaba. That is supposed to be the Christ snake on the sea of glass flying in a Merkaba.
What are those little red ribbons, right? The football ribbons there. What's happening?
That's the 7 seals. There's 7 of them.
Oh, that's the 7 seals. Thank you.
And see, his mouth is wide open. He's talking. He's quoting from the Bible.
Oh, he's a speaking serpent.
He is a speaking serpent.
Why doesn't he have legs? He's not the.
Because it has to do with the way that it's defined in prophecy.
I like this version even better.
That's
like you have to understand that the Merkaba, though, the Merkaba that he's in is the flying horse. Because there's all of these flying horses, including the one that had Muhammad with it, that are associated to lightning, including the Pegasus. The name of Pegasus comes from lightning. However, that's basically what it's supposed to represent, is like a flying snake.
Dude, Joe Alexander, maybe he doesn't even want to be equated.
Oh well.
Excuse me. This fellow, scratch what I just said, had done the Lloyd our Christ bearer. Do you remember that?
You mean Joe Alexander, the famous Jerusalem, Taiwan-born American Israeli professional basketball player?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually talking about somebody completely different. I'm talking about Barely Human 11 who did Back to the Future predicts 9/11. Not talking about the same guy at all. It's somebody completely different. And this other totally different person had done a series on Christopher Lloyd called Lloyd Our Christ Bearer that he thought he lost completely, gone forever. Last I talked to him about it, but somebody shared it with me and I have it in my hard drive. And I think I actually uploaded it to Twitter. I'll upload it again if I can't find it, but incredible series. But he talks a lot about the Pegasus as lightning as relates to Zeus, and how that throughout Christopher Lloyd's whole career in film, over and over and over again, it's like that's the archetype. And you'll see lightning equated with Christopher Lloyd in like everything. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah,
like, because even the weird places where you wouldn't even, you know,
there's the Pegasus statue in Anastasia where he plays Rasputin. That's like the ending of that show. There's a giant
everything. Pagemaster, freaking Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He's shooting the lightning. Like it's just even in Clue. At the beginning of the Clue, which I was mentioning earlier, like you can see his title at the beginning of the movie is accompanied by lightning. Like, yeah, it's just constant.
I have to rewatch Clue. I forgot that he was in this. That's crazy, man.
Right. So he's a Christ resonator in the movies over and over and over again. And it's weird too, because it's like got the kind of the duality embedded into it, you know. Like, did you know that Christopher Lloyd is in freaking
Buckaroo Banzai?
Thank you. As an alien.
Yeah.
Like with
he steals the place to the Rocket 88, bro. He steals the Rocket 88. So the Rocket 88 is a machine that Buckaroo Banzai has devised that will go through like matter in the same way that like the Philadelphia experiment does.
Yeah.
And he basically steals it. Christopher Lloyd is an alien who takes it over. That guy on the left is, I think, is Steven. It's not Stephen. It's some guy who shows up in a whole bunch of wild stuff, because those two guys are together in The One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
He is the homeless guy in Ghost, isn't he?
That was the first thought I had. I don't know why, but that's
as soon as you see him, it pops up right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's also in this other movie or TV show called The Other World, which came out in the 80s, that had all of these The Other World had all of these all-seeing eye of prominence that were marking the roads that they walked down, and that guy brings out a dollar bill and explains how the dollar comes from like this other timeline that they're in. It's a messed up show.
It's weird how Clue is called Cluedo in England, right? Like they don't call it Clue over there, they call it Cluedo, which has the gematria of Rothschild and Nakamoto and Robot. Some weird things that come up when you think about Cluedo. What do you think about that, Cluedo? And also, doesn't Lloyd in Buckaroo Banzai have some weird tie to Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Because he has that same kind of character.
It's the tunnel. He goes through the same tunnel. Like when he's still
the Griffith Park tunnel, below the Griffith Observatory.
That's right.
With which I think
it's in Back to the Future. It's the tunnel that they go down that afterwards.
Pagemaster. It's in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and
it is in Pagemaster also.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah,
right. Yeah.
It's at the opening credits of the Pagemaster, I believe.
It's nuts. But you have to realize, like, they're using this tunnel over and over because of its proximity to Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. That's
what it takes on.
Story, but then why, specifically, like what the symbolism that's connected to it is the consistent thing, and that's what's weird.
Yes,
like
this is
you can say, oh, it's because it's conveniently located, whatever. Okay, well, why is it so specific to Christopher Lloyd? We could keep going. There's other examples too. There's even stuff like if you watch Lloyd Our Christbearer, like there's things that he's connecting. You can do the same thing with Jake Coates's stuff too, where you'll be like, dude, like Jake Coates sets up. Sorry, I'm jumping all over, but Jake Coates sets up a whole thing with Patricia Arquette and the White Rabbit, right? Where she's like Patricia Arquette. He does this called Hair Piece. It's a video that he made. You can find it on Vimeo, where he just shows all of these connections that she has with the White Rabbit and the hair, and through all these films, it does like over and over and over again. And then I go to watch Severance. What does she drive? She drives a freaking White Rabbit. She drives a white Volkswagen Rabbit.
Yeah,
and then it's like
I never said too. Hey, I gotta talk to you about Severance, man. Don't you think Severance is inspired in a lot, like by the backrooms nature of like THX 1138?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I had the thought. I did. Yeah, at some point when I was watching the first season, I was like, wow, I'm getting THX 1138 vibes for sure. Which is also like very much like Plato's allegory of the cave.
Yeah,
because you can only infer that there's. Oh, there it is.
But I can't find the link for some reason. By the way, thank you, Base Kothar. Do you guys remember the Cloak and Dagger movie?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yes. Cloak and Dagger, where the little kid realizes that the hero he looks up to is a spy.
Oh, yeah.
Not Cloak and Dagger Marvel. That's a different thing.
TV series. Is that right?
No. That's Cloak and Dagger TV show for Marvel still.
I'm trying to find Cloak and Dagger 84. Yeah. Yeah. Similarly. But I tried going just now to Barely Human's page, and when you click on the link, it's been removed, it looks like. Yeah. Oh, it exists, but you need permission to see it. I have to log in. Okay. All right.
Well, if I remember correctly, Joe locks his stuff down behind a subscription wall or something similar.
Right. I might be thinking that there's two videos about Christopher Lloyd, and I think one of them he thought was lost, and I freaking found it. So Lloyd.
Yeah, if you can find the Barely Human video, worth checking out in general. It seems like it's hard to get videos on YouTube to stay. His Back to the Future video is the main one. But look at this, 4.9 million views, and then Infinite Wisdom, 6.7 thousand. Like they really locked down. It's amazing that Back to the Future was able to push that hard. For the most part, they don't like his videos being shared by too many people. 9 seconds long. It's the only way you're gonna get that bit as a little sneak taste.
Okay, I got both.
Yeah.
On YouTube. Yeah.
Judge Doom. I forgot that his name in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Christopher Lloyd's character is Judge Doom. Okay, here we go. Here's Christopher Lloyd.
He wasn't a rabbit.
Yeah, look at how he did Apophenia Productions back in the day. Yeah, so this is
there he goes.
This is part 1. And then I got part 2 also. So somebody sent these to me, and I since downloaded them like immediately because I was like, "Holy cow, it exists!" But they're kind of low res, but they're it's awesome.
And so, what's kind of the push that you think it's saying here is that Lloyd is sort of the messianic figure, or the John the Baptist of the Revelation?
Well, he's just archetype casting, and he's making these connections between Zeus and Jesus and how Christopher Lloyd exudes these. He was very much inspired by Jake Kotza. In fact, like if you listen closely in Back to the Future,
happy birthday, Jake! By the way,
you can hear him. Oh, happy birthday, Jake! You can hear him like imitating Jake Kotza at certain parts, and especially when he's talking about like something that Jake Kotza.
He does his cadence, right?
Yeah, he throws on his cadence, and it's such a cool little homage. Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty nuts. It was so funny that that on After Midnight, that like there's like, I only saw this one episode where they talk about his video, but like it was a show on Comedy Central back when 2015, when the video came out for Back to the Future Predicts 9/11. The guy goes over it on this show, and he's like, apparently I've been told that every time he would go over people's YouTube videos, he would always make fun of the people. And when it came to Barely Human 11's video, it was like the one time that he didn't make fun of it. He like respected it. He was like, I'm starting to believe this guy.
Jake had a new thing we should show really quickly, actually, since you bring that up.
Has a vision. Canada as the 51st state.
A lot of people in Canada are liking becoming our beautiful, cherished 51st state. To be honest with you, Canada only works as a state.
Samuel L. Jackson stars in The 51st State, where Meatloaf delivers the film's only on-screen mention of the title.
My money is on good old-fashioned American monopoly. Nothing but the 51st state.
In The Long Kiss Goodnight.
That's right! You can't kill me!
As the Canadian border banner burns, he speeds a car over the exploding bridge between Canada and the US, symbolically erasing the divide.
I think Jake just wants to be American.
Is it erasing the divide, or is it creating
the 51st state is Formula 51. During this period, as Trump continues his expansionist talk targeting Canada, the promotional efforts for Brad Pitt's F1 rev up.
When was the last time you won a race? Sunday, Daytona. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Formula 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Then same as you.
F1 is short for Formula 1, a close match for Formula 51.
I was a recall coordinator. My job was to apply the formula.
As if reinforcing the connection between F1 and Formula 51, Brad Pitt appears in Fight Club alongside the number 51 on Marla's apartment door and shares screen time with Meatloaf.
My money is on good old-fashioned American monopoly. Nothing but the 51st state.
No.
It's going to happen.
In one of the film's most iconic moments, where Pitt shares the soap-derived formula for explosives, he's wearing a bold Hawaiian shirt adorned with maple leaves.
Oh, maple leaves.
You got nitric acid, you got nitroglycerin. If you were then to add sodium nitro, dash the sawdust, you got dynamite.
What does that tell you about God?
If you like this video, hit subscribe and the bell icon to make sure you don't miss any future videos. Also, if you want to see exclusive content, follow me on Patreon.
Make sure you guys follow Jake. He's doing incredible stuff. I mean, like, he just a little taste like that just blows my mind every time. Like, I mean, that's
dude,
great.
You're flickering out, dude. You're like a
The
photograph.
light, it's dark right now. I'm gonna turn some lights on in here.
This hot tub time machine. He's just like, he's fading out, man. What are your thoughts, Will? You look like you're contemplating. Jupiter mission 18 months later. Did you get that from Jake?
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow.
It's got DuckTales on the back.
It's got Donald Duck comics on the back.
Ooh, it's shiny. Oh, it's a hologram.
Wow.
Jake sent you a hologram with DuckTales and the Jupiter mission?
He must really like you.
No.
You lucky duck.
I paid money. I paid cold hard cash.
Right, that's still fair. Still fair.
Awesome,
it wasn't out of like affection. He did not send me a Donald Trump.
I'm sure that he still had to care even if you paid him. So what about, I remember earlier you were saying you were working on a script of things you wanted to talk about though. Did you get to cover all the things?
No, like that's for tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
I just had to. I was having to go through each episode of Waco. Tomorrow, I'm talking to Catherine Wessinger, the professor of the histories of religions. She's been expert in Waco for 30 years now, and she's basically coming on early in the morning to talk about like what is true and what is fake as far as like what's portrayed in the series.
Okay, legit.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, far out.
Yeah.
You got to be careful when you're connecting to people who have direct real life connections to some of this stuff, because they're not gonna, they're gonna have different ideas about what your intentions are. I'm sure they got a lot of people out there doing weird stuff all the time.
Well, the survivors have to deal with a lot of different people from different angles, including individuals like threatening them, shit like that. Plus there's like weirdos like me, hangers-ons. And also there's some events that happen like after Waco. There were some squatters who basically have squatter rights to the land now. So sometimes if you give like a donation to the Branch Davidians, you're not giving it to the actual survivors. You're giving it to individuals who have.
It goes to Act Blue for some reason.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, man. Plus, there's secrets. Like all I had to do was basically prove that there was more in line with John Carter than the Waco series, as far as explaining sync. That's all that I was going after, but.
Wait. You're saying that the miniseries about Waco, that there's more truth in John Carter than there is the miniseries?
There's more truth in what David is actually saying in John Carter than there is in the actual portrayals of David.
Dude, that's funny that you'd say that, because I had said not that long ago that I felt like there's more truth in The Green Knight about what Jim Morrison was about than there was in Oliver Stone's The Doors movie.
I mean, I can see that. There's like, so what we're dealing with, like a bunch of sync heads can do what we just showed Jake doing.
Right.
And there's people who make predictions. Like there's stuff that we predicted about, like Natalie Portman, that came up in movies years later.
Right.
And so there's a different way of looking at this. There's kind of like some philosophies as far as like, is it the individuals who are the sync heads who are creating the syncs, or is there really syncs? Are syncs real? And so what my job has been doing is basically going towards the actual actors. I tried this with like Rose McGowan.
Did you do Friday Night Lights too? I think is a big one.
Right. Yeah. He was like the savior in that. I think that's probably why he got interested. I'm thinking that he wanted to play Koresh because of his experience with working in Texas. I don't think that he's from Texas though.
Mm-hmm. Isn't he from England or something weird? I forgot. I don't know if that's true.
He also played Gambit in one of the Deadpools, or not Deadpool, but like Wolverine Origins.
He's freaking Canadian. It all back.
Oh, he's Canadian. Of course he's Canadian.
They really screwed up with, like, if you look at, like, I'm sorry, I just got to go on that rant for a second. Like with Gambit, like, as far as like a superhero character is concerned, what a missed opportunity. Every few times I've seen Gambit represented, I'm like, really? This is the best
Have you seen the new Deadpool?
Cool ass the new Deadpool? I did.
With Deadpool and Wolverine, you mean?
Where, Deadpool and Wolverine, and basically, what's his face? The guy who has 2 first names, Channing Tatum.
I need to watch it with sound. I've only seen it with Eminem's new album.
That's adorable. What about Songbirds and Snakes on a Plane? Songbirds and Snakes on a Plane. Aren't snakes on a plane songbirds in and of themselves?
Dude, Snakes on a Plane is what we were just talking about. Snakes on a Plane is Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, for real.
Completely.
Right back to it.
He's in Snakes on a Plane. That's totally because he's like the David Koresh, like, okay, so it matches there too.
We've got to get the mother bleeping snakes off this mother bleeping plane.
Battlefield too. He's also in Battlefield, which is basically Judgment Day, as an alien force comes down and attacks Liam Neeson as Aslan the Lion. You get what I mean? Like, there's a lot of, like, in John Carter, the person who's basically his alien surrogate father is played by Willem Dafoe. So there's all these kind of connections to these godlike characters anyways. You get what I'm it's cool. Like, all of his stuff is expressing what David Koresh was actually saying Judgment Day was, which was basically an alien invasion who runs everything. So what he's saying is more in tune to John Carter than what Waco says. So that's once I had David Koresh talking about lasers, like Philip K. Dick talked about lasers, and once I had him basically saying that he was in contact with an ancient civilization that was known as God, which is something that Philip K. Dick said, I had already proven that the sync was hiding the message. Now, when I went back and I was like trying to prove the fact that he actually said these things, I came upon resistance because the survivors are so secretive. And you have to ask yourself, why the hell aren't flying saucers involved with the story of David Koresh after 30 years? That's like a miracle in and of itself.
Because you know what they are. They're really time machines. I think a lot about this kind of stuff.
He explains time. He explains the Loch Ness Monster. He reads the passage of Job that explains the Leviathan. Because he's saying he's seeing this stuff in his head. And the same way Philip K. Dick saw the Bible of the Book of Acts in his field of vision, David Koresh says he sees the Bible visually. So there's no conflict in him on what the interpretation is.
Dude, Will, I got to tell you something weird. So, like, I watched your show earlier today.
Yeah.
Right after I watched the show, I go onto Twitter, and somebody who goes by Anna Nicole Wordsmith just happened to have just tweeted about the woman with the 12 stars with the moon at her feet, who's giving birth to the baby, and the dragon is waiting to devour the baby, and then the baby that she's taken away, and the whole thing, the baby saved, it's like the Messiah thing with the throne and everything. Like, tweeted about that in regards to the dragon, what they just saved the astronauts with, who had been up for however many months beyond what they were supposed to. So these astronauts were saved by SpaceX Dragon.
After how long?
They were like
9 months, one gestation.
It's gestation. Very
gestation.
Good. Star child. One star child.
Star child.
Americans refuse to use the metric system, right?
How often do I? Because as you were talking to him about all the dragons that appear in Blade Runner, I was like tripping out on I was like, oh yeah, because I was like waiting to devour devour the child. Totally reminded me of Kronos, and Zeus. And so I was like, and that's like time. And I was like, oh, Philip K. Dick had this whole trip with Valis, and as it relates to time. And so I was like the idea that you're escaping time, right? Like the child is protected and hidden
Well, there's
away, and
multiple
then
times. Okay, so in Genesis, it mentions that to God 1,000 years is like a day.
sure.
But also in the first books of Adam and Eve, there's this whole conversation between Adam and God, where Adam is like God's basically saying, "Hey, look, I'm going to kill all humans and just judge you all." And Adam starts crying. He's like, "Well, how long do we got?" And God goes, 5.5 days. And he's like, Adam's like, "That's not enough time." And he's like, okay, well, 6,500 years. But the whole point is him saying that is like time is relative, bro.
Right.
And so if you wanted to create, like, we basically, according to religious texts, what they're trying to say is we're like in a petri dish. We're basically on that planet from Interstellar that they go down to,
Sure.
they're down there for 15 years, or they're 15 minutes, but to them, when they come back up, it's like 23 years. Now, if you had absolute control over a star system and you wanted to make, wouldn't you speed up their process, so to speak? So you get what I'm saying? The whole idea that a day of 1,000 years to us is a day to God could mean the same thing as Interstellar's like water planet.
Time is relative because Zeus is a relative of Kronos, you see?
There's something mythological about the name, the DeLorean in itself. It's like de lore, like someone who believes in lore. It's like of the believer of lore.
Sure.
Like
and so this is you go down the rabbit hole of the shit with Elon Musk as it relates to Back to the Future and the DeLorean. Like the Cybertruck is the modern DeLorean, and the DeLorean, like that was all tied to some big Coke deal, and like they were building the parts in like Ireland in the news lately. Interesting. You know what I'm saying? But like then the particulars around it as it relates to hot
Conor McGregor
in terms of
McGregor recently saying,
you know who's been calling this whole Elon stuff the whole time has been Goro Adachi, man.
It should be. We should stop calling him Elon. We should start calling him L on. You know what I mean? Kind of like, right? Because
on
the on, right? Which I think David brought this to my attention a long time ago, that the city of On, you know, Heliopolis was On, right? And so
in Hebrew,
L for Elohim, right? So that's what I think really the Lites.
Oh, that's crazy. Those are the two. That's nuts. That's really nuts. I can tell you a few reasons why that's nuts. Because when you look at the like if you arrange the terror arcana as a Vesica Pisces, and you have just the way that because you have 22 cards, right? If you put one on the left and one on the right, you have Aleph on one side and Lamed on the other. That's it in its natural formation. You can shift it if you relate to the way that the Saudi star shift happened, you know. But then even beyond that, the way the like, because that's just the letters as they exist in Hebrew. If you lay it out that way, that's what you get is L. If you ignore the Roman numerals, but you're looking at the numeration of the Hebrew letters that are corresponding to those cards, you can do a shift of it where you end up with where you rotate the whole thing, and you end up with the sun on one side and lust on the other. Lust is Leo. The sun is the sun. Leo rules the sun. And it just happens to be set up that way. Heliopolis is all about the sun worship, right? That's the other god, right? So like that's the god before God, like to have a god before, right? So that's like the whole criticism. Like Ra means evil in Hebrew. That's likely not a mistake. You know what I mean? But so this is the third part of the Trinity, Masonry Trinity of Jah Balan. So you have Jah as in Yud He Vav He, so it's showing you Tetragrammaton, and you have Baal, and then you have On, and I'm like, what the fuck is On? And it's like, no, it's On is Heliopolis, and so the idea is that there was a there's
Baal On Heliopolis of Baal of Jah.
Right. Wow. So those are the Jews that didn't leave, you know, that like were basically were integrated into the Egyptian mystical religion, had their own synagogue temple in Heliopolis. So that's the story.
Why is On strength instead of Oz strength?
So strength here is basically idolatry. So there's there's like this strength that's the integrity of nature itself, which is what Oz is. So like Yakin and Bo-Oz is established in strength. Those are the two pillars that exist in nature. The whole thing with Solomon's temple is that Adonai tells David not to build the temple, and then Solomon goes ahead and builds it anyway. He has a workaround. Everything in both Old and New Testament is like filled with workarounds. Like there's the gospel, and then there's like a lot of the rest of the New Testament is like, well, how do we work around this? But the same thing is true. Like he's told, you can't build the temple, not because you shouldn't, not because it's a rule like that. It's like a rule like gravity. He's like, you can't build the temple because it won't be built by human hands. But it's like, no, we're going to build it anyway. And we're going to build it in the image of what we can extrapolate what the integrity is in nature. But the meaning is that this will have birth, growth, decay, and death, like everything in form, that whereas the structure, the template that's being pointed to with the Kabbalistic tree and what, the way that that's referenced in the Old Testament is this is not what's built by human hands, but this is the integrity of the universe. That's Oz. The integrity of the universe is Oz. What we build with our human hands, that's On. That's related to On. So it's like, this is strength because it's strong. It'll hold, but it's not the same ultimate strength as you have from Hashem. So the idea is like what you were saying earlier in your podcast with this guy talking about the Leviathan. That's the significance of Leviathan, is that no one on earth can defeat Leviathan, but God can. So it's like, and the same thing, you could relate that to artificial intelligence. This thing is going to go out of control to the point that we can no longer stop it. It's going to be happening on its own. And when it reaches that point, it's like, well, God can still stop it. Like, even if man can't, even though the
Type
thing
in
that we
Leviathan
built.
real quick. I want to show you what you're saying is true. However, in saying it, you're actually presenting like a controversy, because if you go and you look in the Leviathan Wikipedia page, will give you an ancient, like an 1800s or something like that, representation. It should still be on here, of the Antichrist. There it is. That's the Antichrist. You can totally see where it says the word Antichrist, but it's the one riding the Leviathan. And there's other things that have been mixed up. You get what I mean?
Yeah, but that's supposed to be this happens, especially in medieval times, where you have this conflation. So like, no, check it out, because you have Leviathan as it exists in the Tanakh. You have the Leviathan as it exists in the Tanakh, and then you have basically like these mystery schools that are taking the components of that. They're taking something that's being spoken to, and they're connecting it with things like Samael. That's Lilith and Samael symbolism. Right. Samael is a serpent that Lilith rises, or strike that, reverse it.
Yeah.
Like, and then that's where we get the Scarlet Woman on top of the beast, right?
Right.
And the beast of the apocalypse is equated.
Red and green.
Topological. I think I sent you that earlier, where one event there's types of events and types of individuals that kind of reproduce themselves over and over and over in the Bible, sort of like echoes. Right. But of course, this also goes through like most of our mythology and things of that nature too. For instance, like Mary Magdalene basically means like the woman in the tower. And in a way, you can see how all of the portrayals of a princess being guarded by a dragon in a tower are related to the same idea of Mary Magdalene.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other things too. Like if you look up King Cepheus, so King Cepheus is, I think that's how that starts with a C. So basically, yeah, that's it right there. It's the guy who's from Clash of the Titans, but he's shown sitting on a throne. Like he's normally portrayed with an olive branch or something like that in his hand, or a rod, like the stick and rod that's like talked about in Revelations. But King Cepheus has his daughter chained up for basically what translate as big fish. It's the Leviathan. The Leviathan is the monster who's coming, what they call the Kraken in the movie. And then Perseus is the guy who basically comes flying on a horse. Again, horses are Merkabahs. Like the four horsemen in Revelation are not necessarily a man on a horse, but different aspects of God in Merkabahs.
Perseus is interesting. We were talking about Titans yesterday, and this idea that Titans are predating, they're like intelligences, primordial intelligences, and the gods come later. So it's also kind of this weird Abrahamic story, because the father fears the son, and the son shouldn't be born, but the prophecy's coming, and the son's born from the light shining into the kind of Rapunzel tower with the mother, and he's grown in a box, right? And he's cast upon the rocks and sent out because the king doesn't want to be killed or replaced by the son. But it's very much a very, I mean, David, you probably could take this further.
But then you got, I mean, like,
oh no,
Fiona,
this is the theme. You're just describing the archetypal theme that we keep seeing repeated. So like, as Will was doing a show earlier, I was seeing the archetypes that are communicated in the book of Revelation with devouring the child and relating that like with this whole time thing. But you're absolutely right, Andreas. Like that whole thing with the Titans, you're looking at a new world order, right? You're looking at this is,
and you're not supposed to look at it. That's the thing about Perseus, because Medusa is this victim, actually, even though she's considered to be this horrible thing. If you see her for what she is, it turns you to stone. Because if she sees you, if you stare into the abyss stares back at you, right? So what you have to do is look at the reflection. So that's why he's using his shield in order to see where she is. But he's also done a number of magical rituals in order to be invisible. So they can't see what's coming, which is Perseus. And Perseus knows not to look at what is. And therefore, he's able to decapitate Medusa, which then the king who wants to rape and marry his mother is turned to stone by seeing the face of the head of Medusa, right? Taking over the throne. Is
it not just like an allegory that it's like, you know, that you turn to stone, that you get hard because she's like super hot?
I mean, I'd like it to be that way because she is definitely Medusa.
Because she's stunning, you know.
She's
stunned,
definitely Medusa's way underrated, and I like her hair. I do.
Now we're gonna play.
I think it's more than that. I think it's actually that when you understand something, and you realize something, it might solidify you, and it might make it impossible for you to be flexible.
Dude, totally. So, or the philosopher's sand has fused into stone, right? Or that there's also the idea that, like what Aldous Huxley spoke to, of when you're bombarded with so much information, you become complacent because you have nowhere to go.
Right. That's where I think it is. I think it's that with the Greek mythology. And so he's better off being flexible by seeing the reflection than actually observing the true nature of the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Or maybe even that you can't even see the thing. I mean, that's the case with Moses and God. Like, he goes to look at God and all he can see is God's back parts. He can't see the front, which is another instance where you have like this place where where we conflate the issue with like rules, where it's like, where there's like a rule like a stop sign and there's like a rule like gravity, right? So like that's what I was saying about like the temple. It's like, it's not really that you're saying, you're being told don't build the temple. It's like, no, you can't build the temple. Like, you can build something, but it's not going to be that thing like that's being pointed to. You know what I mean?
Look up Cepheus in Hebrew.
Perseus is the temple. Cepheus in Hebrew? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then Pisces the fish. Where do you want me to go?
It doesn't, I'm not sure if it says it. There's a lot of like type in the branch. If you were using like the AI guys, like it probably would come up. But
what are you doing? I don't know what you're referencing. You're talking about, okay. Oh, the constellation as it appears.
There is an interpretation that Cepheus is the branch in the biblical books of philosophy or prophecy. So, but that's not correct. Basically, what they're saying is that where does it go? If you use Google, it usually comes up as like the first thing on the
trying to make me use
AI.
Google. You disgust me. All right, let's try.
See, there it is, the coming branch, Cepheus, the coming branch.
Okay.
But that is not true. Like, unless you can tell me that there's some sort of like Jewish relationship between Cepheus, I mean,
of course, you have to remember that. I mean, this came up earlier. Someone was saying something when we looked at the Star of David as the Star of David, and they're like, "Oh, it looks Jewish." I'm like, I was gonna say Babylonian, right? Because it's really the seal of Solomon. It has to do with Babylon. And sure, the Jews lived in Babylon. The Jews lived in Florida and New York too. That doesn't mean they're from there, you know. Right. It's a Babylonian tradition. So I think Cepheus.
Right. It's also just a hexagram. It's geometry.
Somebody pinpointed it right here. Witness of the Star. Somebody like figured out where it was from. I had to do that same research. Biblical study of constellation. There was a whole big trend sometime around the Victorian age where individuals were looking for the prophecies in the constellations and stars. And so there were a lot of books that were written one book copied another each other, or it copied about Cepheus meaning the branch, and it's kind of like become part of the internet. And if you can find any relationship between Cepheus and the Hebrew word for the branch, I would love to know it.
Yeah, my rabbi could
I
probably
have
tell you
just
that.
landed. Let me see. Okay, they're taking off. So we got about an hour and maybe an hour and a half after they take off.
So the branch in Hebrew, the Hebrew word to match, can be translated as branch, using the Hebrew as Tanakh to refer to the descendant or lineage of, often in a messianic or prophetic context. No direct connection.
It says that the real name of Christ is the branch, and it's basically leading one to. There's multiple mentions of God being a we, and Christ being multiple people.
What about the branch Covidians, Will?
That's where it comes from. See, that's what it's really the branch Covidians.
I met a lot of them.
Waka Waka. All right.
Yikes.
That one hurt. Well, the keys to Mazzaroth, right? So
I think Mazzaroth is a Dyson sphere, but there's a bunch of words that are mentioned inside of the book of Job.
So Mazzaroth is mentioned in Job, right? And so what happened? How does this happen? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there's not a really good, clear understanding of what it is.
I didn't realize that the Brer Radin scene at the beginning of Watership Down was done in this ancient Hebrew Sumerian art style, but that's exactly
I
what
see what you're saying. Yeah.
I never noticed it before.
Far out. Yeah, well, in the book of Job, you have the behemoth and you have Leviathan, and they're
you have a straight cold whole chapter of the description of the Leviathan.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene, I swear to you, the scene in the files where David Koresh reads it is just out of control. Because he talks about them, he calls them his pets. And he basically says that he knows where every single one of them are on the planet. He basically says they are like a creature, a mechanism that was made to intentionally break physics. But if you look at where the Leviathan comes from, it goes all the way back to the Book of Giants. And like Gilgamesh and all of these Babylonian stories about because basically that's what happens to the giants start having prophetic dreams about the coming flood.
Mm-hmm.
And the Book of Enoch, and I think the Book of Giants comes after. But the couple of giants, after having the dreams, figure out what's going on, and they start climbing a mountain to get away from the flood. And that's when the texture, the actual text starts breaking down, because there's parts of it missing. But the giants basically kill the Leviathan, and then Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. Let's see, Michael. There's 4 of them. I can't remember all of them, but they all the archangels all come down,
right.
And then the text becomes unlegible.
Just so you know, Leviathan kabbalistically is said to be the when the clepot are nullified, Leviathan is the last klepa after all the others have been transmuted. That basically it's like a big drain, and the Leviathan is like there at the end. So it's kind of like the idea that it's always darkest before the dawn kind of thing, where it's like the most intense of the clepot is left there for us to deal with before that's finally taken care of. So
well, a way to look at it is if you read enough of David Koresh and realize that he's only basically quoting from the Bible, but he's telling you details about the Bible that he shouldn't really know. Mm-hmm. Now, the fact is he was bullied most of his life. He was called retarded. He failed a whole bunch of classes, and he really was like Job from the Lawnmower Man.
Right. That was dude, the handicapped man in the Lawnmower Man is named Job.
Yes.
Dude, what is up with Stephen King? Why is he a retard on Twitter, but like came up with all of this stuff? Like,
I feel like that's what we should start doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's clearly works for him. I don't know what else to say.
How is that? How does it work like that? It's so weird.
Okay, so the movie sent me to David Koresh, but based on Lawnmower Man and stuff like that, I figured out that he was, whatever happened to him in his experience, he was seeing in movies.
As Job Smith, by the way.
Right.
It's not
and
just
so
Job.
Smith is kind of a workman's name.
Yeah.
So David Koresh is showing The Lawnmower Man, and he's showing all of these other movies. He's showing like Hot Rods of the God by Kurt, whatever, Don Vonnegut, whatever his name is. I got the book over here. The Chariots of the God book. So he's showing those documentaries and stuff like that to explain what happened to him. And that's what I went to him. At first I realized, I was like, wait. He's showing his people the sync of his whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then I got them to admit it. And then I found it in the papers where he basically says it. You get what I'm saying? So he's using the movies like syncs. But they basically told me like, well, God didn't inspire those men to make those movies, including like Judgment Day, because that's basically the book of Joel. So there's other ones.
Deuteronomist atheist take. Yeah.
There's one more that's really, really good, and that's The Seventh Signs with Demi Moore, which is relevant because
I just found it in my VHS cassettes. I just went through my VHS cassettes today, and I was like, oh shit, I have The Seventh Sign. I should watch this again.
So why the seventh sign is like bad is basically it's saying that the seals are outside of the book, not inside of the book. That's kind of leading you astray on that.
It has the guy from the key from
is the date that it all goes down, the judgment goes down, as February 28th, which is the exact same day that the Waco.
Oh my god! That it ended like the DC.
No, it ends on April 19th.
The clip I found of 7 signs from a channel called Hal 7000. I just felt like you might.
Hal 7000.
17 years ago.
She has
what do you guys think about Lawnmower Man 2 though? Right? Like Lawnmower Man 2.
I don't know. I haven't really watched Lawnmower Man 1 in a long time.
What? Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's really underrated for sure. I haven't seen Lawnmower Man 2 since I was way younger, but I'd like to rewatch it.
That's cool that it's Matt Feuer. Matt Feuer is the guy who basically was the model for Max Headroom.
Yes, that's one of the reasons it's important. And you see some pretty cool stuff in this. You know, right? I'm going to flip them,
including that kid right there. I'm pretty sure that kid was the friend of the guy from Judgment Day. Yeah, isn't that like John Carter's
buddy?
That's totally his buddy.
That's the guy playing Narc in the arcade.
Is that the same guy?
I don't know, man. It's got to be the same time period. I bet you
it looked like
this
him.
is
Dude,
95. So this is like 2 years later.
He looks a little bit more Daywalker than Ginger, but you know, it's still possible.
It might not be him. I don't know. We'll have to go back and find out. I know that kid from other things, though.
I mean, it's definitely the thing is because it's a different cast. I think people didn't care about it as much, but I think it's at least as interesting of a movie. Probably more interesting than you'd expect from the fact that less people were interested in seeing it than you think. I mean, Lawnmower Man 1, it wasn't that popular. I thought it wasn't like the most popular movie. It's interesting it got a sequel at all. And it seems to be very much about L. Ron Hubbard, the sequel, more than the first.
I think it was popular on cassette. It was Lawnmower Man was really good on VHS. Like
similar Disclosure, with Michael Douglas and the lady you just Demi Moore. Demi Moore with Disclosure. If you remember the end of Disclosure, it's all in virtual reality, and like those movies, I'd have to look at the dates, but I feel like they came out in like close proximity, and they were both showcasing virtual reality in a way that people hadn't really seen yet.
I got a stack of Demi Moore
where L. Ron Hubbard had brought up this idea in what became Battlefield Earth from his novel from 1982, and that was very much about this idea of taking a technology and shining it through the faces, to essentially, right? It was the sort of, what's it called? The mind machine. L. Ron Hubbard, Battlefield Earth, Mind Machine. What's it called? He has a name for it. I'm trying to remember. But this is the picture from the book, right?
Oh, did I see this from you?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. What were you sharing?
Can you see it? Yes. Before that.
What did you have there, Will? What are you showing us?
So okay, this is interesting. I got We're No Angels with Demi Moore, Sean Penn, and Robert De Niro, where they pretend to be priest and Demi Moore is like a hooker. She's a prostitute who they're hiding with. But bro, it's straight cold. Like,
I love that movie. I had that as a kid.
2004. It says.
I don't know. Video cassette.
Episode 3 mixed with a whole bunch of the other stuff that came in Star Wars. So they're mixing the movies together, like we were talking about earlier. We got Ghost.
Wait a minute. What do you mean they're mixing the movies together? What is that?
This right here, they've mixed a bunch of the cartoons with the live action and some of the TV shows that came out afterwards into one, so it plays linearly all in a row.
That's weird.
It's like 7 hours long.
Oh God.
So yeah, I like all of those because
I had to find all of
Ghost.
Then there's
Ghost today.
Crazy Summer. Nothing.
Scarlet Letter, Striptease.
Yeah.
Nothing but
trouble.
With what's his name? Tupac, right? He shows up in there.
This one is not only like absolutely loaded with like revelation symbolism, but it's also got the World Trade. There's like a lot of weird scenes with the World Trade.
Oh, dude, I need to know about this. If we're not going to talk about it here, we need to talk about it further. It's because the butcher's wife. There's a movie called The Bishop's Wife, and it directly connects with I think it came out the day and year of the Weinkauf Hotel being destroyed. Or I have to look it up again. But yeah, no, I was wondering about the significance of The Butcher's Wife because I haven't seen it, but I was does it connect with The Bishop's Wife? I don't know.
The Butcher's Wife is like a great movie because it talks a lot about Plato's split aparts. Like the whole idea is this
from the Symposium, you mean?
I'm not even sure if it really technically comes from Plato. There's like a lot of like misquotes in the movie where the guy's like got a quote by Plato and it's not really by Plato. There's like a lot of weird sinky weird shit.
It's actually by Plato. It's not.
But there's this idea of what is called the split aparts, where man and female have like a perfect mate. They were split apart, and now they have to go back and find each other. And the guy goes something along the lines of, "Oh, that's not original. That's from Plato," which it really isn't from Plato, but it's part of like certain dialogues that Plato's involved in.
From Bereshit. So you'll notice that the creation happens like twice. With the creation of man, so like people like the way that it's written is really odd, especially like if you look at the Hebrew. So when it first introduces the Adam, it's male and female. It's even to say created him them, like it doesn't make any sense like in English because like literally like the Elohim is like plural, and then the thing that it's created is also plural. So it's like so anyway, Tetragrammaton makes the Adam as male and female at the same time. And then it's kind of starts over. So it's
there's this whole old world knickknack got Ghost in the VHS Happy Meal tape. Have you guys seen my Ghost pachinko machine? I have a haunted Ghost pachinko machine. This is what it looks like essentially. It's
really?
Like it's huge. Yeah, I don't know. You should come over to my house and see it sometime. It's
like dangerous.
It is. I think mine's haunted too. Like it's
yeah. You're gonna end up with a fucking big situation. You're gonna like be careful, man.
I'd be careful not to
go
plug
backwards.
it in too often.
You're gonna end up like 5 years old.
It's super weird because it has like a TV like screen in the thing that plays scenes from the movie Pachinko, from the movie Ghost, with like weird like animations and things like that. I don't know why. I just couldn't help myself. I just had to have it, kind of thing. It's like, I don't know, but yeah, it's like look at this, like CGI animations of Patrick Swayze as a ghost.
It's just black to me. I don't know if you can see something.
Really, you can't see the screen? That's horrible. They don't want you to see.
That's what they're doing. So like, if you try and watch certain things, like if you try and like Skype and want to watch like Netflix with somebody now, or maybe it's Amazon, I forget. It'll just make the screen dark for them. Like Chrome. You'll see it, but they won't.
There's a way to turn that off in Chrome.
Oh, really?
Maybe.
Cool.
No, I mean I used it to get all of those Blade Runner steals that I had earlier today were basically just using that, because most streamers you can't even look at it on OBS or anything like any screensaver. There's like there's some sort of polarization that they put on there.
That sucks. I can't show it to you.
There's
You
that
guys
guy
need to-
again. Hey,
That makes
look
me
up the Otherworld TV series.
You can see kind of the picture here, right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
Is it black and white?
No, it's black. Yeah.
What?
Well, you can see it until you put your cursor over it.
But when the
So
video's
crazy.
moving, we can't see it.
Have you guys seen the movie Last Supper from 1995, where a bunch of leftists invite Bill Paxton to their house and they murder him?
Oh yeah.
I would happily rewatch that. I haven't thought about that since 1995.
It's so poignant right now. It's like the kind of movie that people who blow up Teslas need to see. You know what I mean? Or like people that, I mean, it's crazy. It's really interesting. It's the first, I found it because I was looking for the first Cameron Diaz movie. And yes, The Mask is technically the first Cameron Diaz movie, but the close second is The Last Supper. And just that biblical title for the movie as well, The Last Supper. I mean, oh God.
Man, okay, wait a minute. We need to talk about Matheson because we're getting around towards Button again.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Totally.
So, because Cameron Diaz was in The Box, right? The Button.
It was actually about her box.
Button. Yo, I listened to what you guys were saying about I Am Legend and stuff, and there was a I went on this whole Matheson thing when I was taught, because he's the guy who also wrote the airplane one with the Twilight Zone where the
Nightmare at 20,000 feet or whatever.
Yes, that's him. That's him.
Is it 20,000?
Something like that. There's a couple of different versions. In fact,
this was originally written for Playboy, right? It was originally published.
I think so. Matheson was writing a lot for magazines and pulp. So he was very prolific. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff where he just popped this stuff out, and a bunch of his ideas were used for Outer Limits and Twilight Zones as well.
So this is a 90s Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
I thought for the longest time it was a Tales from the Crypt, and I got every Tales from the Crypt and was looking for it because I was like, where is it? And I was like, oh, it's a 90s Twilight Zone. But yeah, no, I like The Box as much, if not more, than Donnie Darko personally, because it follows that same thread. There's really that trilogy. I mean, I'm sure you could even add more, but it's Southland Tales, Donnie Darko, and The Box, and they're both doing that thing where you're like Herman Hesse, where you're you work on a theme, and even though it's a different story, it's grappling with the same philosophical issues,
And so what's the deal with The Box? CIA internal memo about Arlington Stewart, a man who's recovered from severe burn wounds and is delivering units related to the Mars project set in 76 around the Ingo Swann remote viewing period, right? So there's some kind of an interesting
everything with these things is so freaking meta. If you look at Donnie Darkened, I think he changed his name or something on Twitter, but these people that are just seen in Donnie Darko, all of this, and Back to the Future, because they're completely connected, right? And all these, the levels of meta, how it all connects to real, world archetypal stuff that's playing out before, it's insane. So, The Box is just as included in that. That's why it's everything that they're doing in there with Mars and everything, and the pillars that they go, that whole communication is so just dude, it's I don't know if are other people seeing how freaking direct?
Well, I mean, just because the whole thing with The Box and Mars back to Elon Musk's Mars project. And so I saw earlier Chase Geiser, one of my friends who was, swatted this last week, but also an InfoWars guy. And hey, by the way, check out his new music piece. I don't know, you should this is kind of wild how good of a pianist he is.
You don't think I really asked to be a 12-inch pianist, did you?
Bro, who knew that he's such a big pianist? Yeah, for sure. But also, what song is that? Trick question. He doesn't have a title for it yet. He wrote this crazy new Rachmaninoff kind of piece. It's insane. Jesus. But he just posted earlier today. He's I'm starting to believe that going to Mars is returning home, And I thought that's interesting. So a lot of people are pushing this idea.
What a alien thing to say, right?
It really is.
John Carter, bro. John motherfucking Carter.
Right back there. Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting story where it comes
and also
from
I wanted to say that earlier about John Carter and Mars, because who made the movie? Jon Favreau, who's making the new Mandalorian and Grogu movie, and it was the whole Star Wars.
Right, that's the thing, is that John Carter is a Star Wars movie that's not in the it should be, and it was Disney, right?
Star Wars is kind of based on
Disney
John Carter
before Disney bought Star Wars.
Right.
No,
John Carter is actually from like 1911, right? It's like from the
Favreau
same
was
time as
involved
Tarzan.
with Carter.
Edgar Rice
He
Burroughs.
did not
it goes
make
back to
Carter. Favreau, in fact, there's a lot of things that Favreau brought from his experience with John Carter on into Mandalorian.
Right.
Wait.
So it's also connected to Tarzan.
Favreau, he did a movie about. Well, that was a weird one. Starts with a Z. I don't know how to pronounce it. However you say his name, I don't remember how to pronounce his name or the other movie I'm trying to think of. But it was like a space thing. It was like a kids movie. It started with a Z.
Zulastra.
Yeah, something like that. So like
Zulustra. It's basically Jumanji in space.
I was about to say that it's Jumanji, but not like
Thura. All I had to do was literally type the Thura. I had to type Jumanji in space and it worked. I remember that. Yeah, it literally was Jumanji in space. That's exactly the way it was sold too. And apparently it was written by the same author. So it's kind of got that same vibe. Yeah. Jumanji to Zathura is very similar to Tarzan to John Carter, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's cool. Dig it.
And Tarzan's an interesting one because it's the primordial.
See, it's a never-ending story, bro, because we're part of the book of life. And the characters in the book don't know that they're in the book. And then when God comes down, it's Deus Ex Machina. It's not the same story. Because that's how Deus Ex Machina works that way, right? Like you're having this play, and then all of a sudden, this lever would bring down God, and God would solve all of the problems, even though it was not part of the narrative, right? But the narrative would get so convoluted that God would have to come down and sort everything out. And it's like it happens sometimes in movies like Hudson Hawk with Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis. Yeah. It's such a bad movie, though.
But I mean, it's intentionally using DSI. Like, there's a lot of depth to Hudson Hawk.
Dude, like, seriously, though, like, John Carter, like, that whole thing in Attack of the Clones, when that guy with all the arms, and they're, like, fighting the guy, and he's got, like, all these lightsabers, and, like, that planet, like,
Grievous.
Everything about that is just, like...
It's Connor. It's kind of
the same freaking thing. It feels like I want to, like, pause Star Wars, insert John Carter, and go back to Star Wars, like, in the middle of Attack of the Clones. Like, what you're supposed to do, like, wait a minute, how does this go? There's two things.
Oh my God, you're right. Here's why. So go ahead. No, I know, but I know why now. Sorry.
No. It's when Harrison Ford's frozen in Carbonite, and between like when he gets frozen and when he gets released in Return of the Jedi, you're supposed to watch all three. No, four, I guess, Indiana Jones movies, because it's his dream while he's frozen in Carbonite. When you watch Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, when he takes the adrenochrome, you're supposed to pause it and insert in the one with the lizard with Johnny Depp. What is that called?
Rango.
You're supposed to watch Rango and then continue watching, because that's his trip.
When the girl gets sent away, we watch Mysterious Skin. But I think when you think about the John Carter, what you do is every time you see one of the scenes in John Carter that's supposed to be one of the biggest scenes of all time, you see the scene it's based on. Because every scene that John Carter, that everyone's like, this is a ripoff of another movie. That's because every scene that it's based on is that they stole from a movie that got the idea from originally John Carter's book, the comic book. So it's this full reverse logic that pulls you back into the
That's like somebody going up to David Bowie and say, "Hey man, I'm glad you sing that Nirvana song, bro."
Yeah, well, it's like when you're at Disneyland and a girl, or when you go to Neustadt or some castle in Germany, and some girl says, "Wow, this looks like the Disneyland castle." You know.
Hey, you guys check this out. This is a new beer. This is a new beer that came out with a local beer called Public Domain, but it's got Steamboat Willie on it.
Nice. Heck yeah.
Steamboat. So this started the whole the whole unbelievable copyright
our mouse is free.
That we're
is
about.
That why you're Willy Will now? Is because you're copyright free of copyright?
And he's steam powered.
Willy Will. Yeah, I'm Steamboat Willy Will. That's what.
That's beautiful. Well, I want to make sure everyone knows, by the way, go to Meta Egg. You know, this is Will's channel here, Meta Egg, and he's been doing some cool videos this week. Tomorrow, he's got another one he was just telling us about that he's going to do. Today, he did the Blade Runner one, and you should check that out. If you're just tuning into this, when you're done, go check out his talk with David Gill. I think at some point, where do you jump in? David shows up at some point.
Well,
right?
David was definitely in the chat room the whole time.
You shared a couple things from me, but the thing that I wasn't necessarily expecting to share the thing at the end where you misread what I wrote. Where you said,
go ahead and explain that.
I said survivor. It was something I don't know. And in the chat, I wasn't necessarily thinking I was going to advertise it there, let alone on SyncTank. It was just at one point I connected with a woman who had done she was responsible for Survivor. She came up with Survivor, and so she sold the rights to other people for Survivor, and they gave her $1 million, which she blew. So she like lived in this mansion. At the time when I met her, she was just about 2, and I went to a garden party where she was throwing a party to say bye-bye to the mansion so she could move into a fancy but single room apartment. She had horses, she had all this stuff, but they gave her $1 million for the idea for Survivor, and she had it framed on her wall. That's like the contract where they like were basically taking Survivor from her, but she let it go, and then it went to other people. So it goes to show you that when you look stuff up on Wikipedia too or whatever, you don't always get the real story, because people get paid for the things that they come up with, just so you know. But yeah. So anyway,
David Charles Plate, Hot Tub Time Machine walkthrough from about 3 months ago. He's got a conversation with Andros. You should always watch anything with Andros Jones. Love you, Andros Jones. And then Meta Egg. Just jump on. I know we're gonna make you guys friends again. All right. And we go. Make sure you go to YouTube, Meta Egg, and also MK Ultrasound 723. David Charles Plate. He's up on the Twitter. He's up doing the Twitter around there on the X. He's got X-rated material in his highlights reel.
X-rated.
Yeah. Eraserhead paired with Leonard Cohen's album. I feel bad. I should have looked at this a minute ago because I wanted to talk way more about Leonard Cohen. We should definitely next week, Tuesday, let's talk a bit more about Leonard Cohen, because Leonard's been on my mind a lot. It seems like
Canada, man. Yeah.
Represent. There's a lot of reasons. I think the Cohen priesthood at the beginning with Darth Vader is just as good of a synchronicity, but there's a lot of reasons I think that Leonard Cohen's important that we should talk about. And Racerhead too, David Lynch. But yeah, so everybody, David, and you should watch all of his material. Take this moment to also shout out Xirtus Amoeba. Thanks for making clips from all these episodes. You're freaking great. Yeah. Sweet. Anybody else want to say anything else before I pull?
I don't know. You share your Tartaria website, everything. You could just whatever you want. Yeah.
Just
people already know.
Melt down your jewelry and like send the money into Koresh. Join the branch Xirtus Davidians. And keep it alive.
Davidians. Be careful, bro.
We'll see you tomorrow, bro.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus.